She just painted on heels.
Mm,
Blake, you have so
looks.
much to do.
Yeah.
Ew. You think you can get like these really cool travel shots, but it's like, no, this is what it actually looks like. A million people just standing there trying to take pictures of like the background and everything. It's not as like peaceful and glamorous as people make it look.
This company wanted me to model for them a few months ago because they wanted somebody with a normal body, so I was like, yeah, for sure, down. Then they went and freaking Photoshopped my body. Can you believe that? It's so embarrassing that companies still use Photoshop for all of the wrong reasons, and that their products can't stand alone. Do better.
That is terrible. Are they allowed to do that? The before picture is stunning and there is absolutely
nothing wrong with her body.
I hate the world we live in. I absolutely hate it. Ugh, like that looks fake. It's so pretty.
Still don't know my name.
So my bike is on the sea floor. Now how in the hell did your bike end up there? Also very different color water. It literally looked fake for how beautiful it was. Niagara Falls.
They were fake?
Of course they were fake!
You have fooled me. Here I was thinking, oh, that's so smart to put a bed there. No, the bed is in fact not there, apparently. Oh, I've been fooled because I genuinely thought in my head that I want to rent that room because it's so gorgeous. And imagine your bed's next to the window and you wake up to... I'm sure maybe those rooms actually exist and maybe just hers didn't. I don't know. I have no faith anymore in anything.
Stranger.
Oh, that's cool.
Still don't know.
Oh, that water's dirty. It's a gloomy day. It is windy. The water looks dirty. It's just painful.
So this is the story of how I was flipping off a sign at my school and I decided I wanted to post it on Instagram.
Classic.
So I had to figure out how to make it a peace sign, and I haven't used Photoshop since maybe junior year of high school. So that's me using the quick select tool. And then I basically just copy and pasted my middle finger, which I thought would be a really good idea. And then that's me with two middle fingers doing a fake peace sign, and then it just looks like shit, but I'm still probably gonna post it. Thanks.
Honestly, it's not as bad as I thought. You could even maybe Photoshop a ring on there. Like, I feel like that might have helped. I would have just posted it with the middle fingers in all honesty. If you've graduated, who cares? See ya. Thanks for putting me thousands of dollars in debt for a degree you might not even use.
So a few months ago, I modeled for a company and they photoshopped my pictures, so I want to show you guys their
Is this the
pictures
same girl?
versus me in real life.
This is the
Right
same
now,
girl,
I'm actually
right?
wearing an outfit that is tighter than the outfit that I was wearing on that shoot day. I actually wore a very loose outfit that day. I wore a V-neck shirt out like this from the company with mom jeans. So this is where it starts. You might have to watch the video just to re-see that. Here's me holding the jug in the next photo.
It is her.
Honestly, the ones from the side, they're the best ones. It's so funny. You're gonna have to pause the screens. So this is the photoshopped one versus the original. The next one is also funny. They photoshopped my whole chin. It's so freaking embarrassing for them. And they photoshopped my whole jawline and my face and neck here in the next one. And the last one, they added an extra booty, and it is just so funny. Like, my body doesn't work like that.
She really went into detail here, and I appreciate that. Their entire website is photoshopped of her. Everything. No offense, like it's not her fault, but her face doesn't look like that. She's gorgeous. But the way they've chiseled out her chin a certain way, like it just looks like a completely different person. I don't know how people are shocked that anyone deals with body image issues anymore. I don't know. How are you shocked? Why are you surprised? I want to look like the girl in the magazine. Hun, the girl in the magazine doesn't even look like the girl in the magazine. Okay? Okay.
It is so bad, I want to give you a 0.
Oh, no.
But that's not possible. So I give you a 1.
What are those? I hope you got your money back. That is outrageous. You are better off just leaving the picture with their eyes closed. I also think I could have done a better job of photoshopping eyes on there.
Hello, if you have been following me for a while, you
More
know that
Amazon
I can find strange
Photoshop
things. Therefore, I've
fails.
decided to go on Amazon. This one is more about the Photoshop fails.
Can't wait.
I am just in shock that these exist, so enjoy.
Thank you.
You may be thinking, okay, it's just a jumper, what's wrong
Yeah,
with
I
it?
don't notice.
Why has her thumb melted into it? Look.
Oh my gosh, what is with the thumbs,
Right,
y'all?
jeans, brilliant. But what the fuck has happened to his feet? I don't know if this is a legitimate Photoshop issue or if his feet genuinely look like this. I just like that they haven't added any shadows or anything. It's just the flat joggers and they make his legs look like they've been run over. Why are they so flat? Flat standard.
Yeah, that is so
And
strange.
knees. Look at
Oh
his
my
feet.
gosh.
It's like they've just taken the top half of his body and
They
photoshopped on a
did.
pair of jeans and shoes. Just a regular guy with a shirt and some jeans
His
on.
foot.
But they've just pressed Control-Alt-Delete on his ankles. What's going on? Why have they removed his... What? And my personal favourite, the shapewear. So this is going to give you some Kim K looking figure. And the next picture is supposedly what it's like when you actually wear them. I have no words. So,
This is embarrassing.
if you want to look like Kim K, buy this product.
Amazon should be ashamed of themselves. And I know it's not Amazon. It's obviously like the seller who's uploading and setting up their... Wow. Guys, I'm going to go on a rabbit hole going on Amazon and finding these Photoshop fails. And watch. I'm going to do a whole video on it because it's going to be so much fun. So if you want to see that video, let me know. I'm getting out of here though, you guys. Stay classy out there. Stay sassy. And remember, because I feel like we need it after this, your life and you and your body and everything is perfect the way it is. Let's not compare to the things we see on social media, okay? Because this is a reminder that a lot of it is fake. They need a course of that in schools, like implemented. Honestly, I'm not even kidding. They need to make a course and teach people the reality of the world so that they don't have these issues growing up, because all of this would have been so nice when I was a teenager, but I went to LA, Hollywood,
back in second.
Boy, do they make it look different in movies and on TV. Okay? Dirty. %90 of people I know who went to school are working in a job that was outside of their degree. Or they had a degree and then they apply for jobs and you don't actually need the degree, you need other stuff, or like, get an education now. I'm not trying to tell you not to go to school. Actually, I don't even care. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to. I did. An honorary bachelor degree, and I also minored in English. You would never know, but anyways. Can you guys guess what my program was at university for 4 years? What did I take? Drama, obviously. And then I minored in English, which is incredibly surprising because I'm not very bright.
Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best entitled people stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen is in love with my husband. I shut her down. Long story short, my husband has one of those female friends. I'll call her Sarah. Her and I get along fine, but every once in a while she'll make a comment or sit a little too close or touch him a lot or compete with me on how close they are or how well she knows him. She's one in a big group of about 11 friends. I've talked to my husband about her several times, but it's so many added up micro actions that it's hard to tell her off for one singular thing without looking crazy. Well, this past weekend, the group of friends got together for the very first time since we all now have our boosters. My husband and I eloped a few weeks ago, and this was the first time that most of us were seeing each other since. Sarah came up and got in our face as the group was congratulating us to tell my husband how disappointed she was in him for not telling her about our ceremony, not inviting her, not even sending her a photo. He told her nobody except our parents knew. Nobody was invited, and we don't have our professional photos back. This girl started sobbing. How could he do this to her? That she wanted him to be her man of honor when she gets married. She's single, and he didn't even invite her to his, and their friendship now needed some serious TLC to recover. This is in front of a whole group. I couldn't take it anymore and said, he might be your best friend, but you're not his, and this was between me and him. You were not even a consideration. There were some frosty oohs from the crowd, and she left the house. The crowd is split. They were all my husband's friends before I came into the picture, and some think it was uncalled for, that I should have just let my husband handle it. I was mad in the moment, but now I don't know. Did I go too far? Not the jerk. She stepped over the line with her sobbing and demands publicly that she needs TLC? She's got a whole relationship in her head that may or may not exist, and your husband needs to draw that line in the sand. OP. Yeah, the TLC comment was what I think triggered me. The only tender thing I ask for of my friends is chicken. Not the jerk, but I'm curious as to why your husband hasn't distanced himself from someone who doesn't even respect your relationship. OP. They don't do things one-on-one anymore, but she's still within the main friend group, so it's hard to not have her around. He still needs to set boundaries. Her behavior was way out of line. She's honestly acting like your husband is either a fallback person for her or the one who got away. She needs to be shut down immediately, or you two need to be a united front about it. Honestly, your husband is just as to blame as his friend is. She keeps violating boundaries, and your husband keeps allowing it. You should be mad at him, especially since he hasn't done anything to stop this. He isn't an incompetent little kid. He knows what's going on and chooses to not cut her off despite you complaining about her behavior and that she obviously makes you uncomfortable. Unfriending someone isn't hard, and he should have done it a while ago with her. You shouldn't be fighting her. He should. Not the jerk, and I wish you could see how hard my eyes rolled reading this post. Talk about no boundaries. She's so transparently into your husband, it's almost painful. While you definitely could have let him handle her, you weren't out of line in the least. This girl needs to know where she stands, and that's well behind you. Nicely done. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the husband's friend? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for refusing to cook for my husband after what he said? I, female 30, live with my husband, male 35, and our 3 kids, who are 8, 5, and 2. I work as a freelance artist from home, and my husband works long hours driving. As a result, I do the majority of housework and look after our 3 kids. Though when he's off work and home, he takes on his fair share. Our lives mean that we don't have much free time. I enjoy cooking, and as a mom, I make sure to give my kids a wide variety of foods to eat. I want them to appreciate different cultures, flavors, and different types of cuisine from all around the world, and to grow up kind and respectful of others. So a few days a week, 3 out of 7, my kids and I cook together and make a recipe from another country. We all enjoy this, and it gives a perfect segue into learning about a foreign country. My husband, on the other hand, has a more plain palate and prefers simpler English dishes that he grew up with, such as pies, fish and chips, roast dinners, etc. We eat plenty of meals like this too. A week ago, we hired a babysitter and went to a friend's house for dinner. We've all been tested. They cooked a beautiful vegetarian pie with mashed potatoes and vegetables. My husband turned to them and said, Finally, a decent meal for once. Pickle Pie Banana is always cooking these awful smelly dishes. Feeling hurt, I looked at my husband and asked him what he meant, and he said that he only puts up with it because he doesn't have time to cook something decent for himself. The meal was a little awkward after that, but neither of us brought it up again while there until we came home. I told him that I wouldn't stop cooking foreign food with the kids, and if he didn't like it, he would have to cook something for himself. He once again said that he didn't have time for that, and I should just cook him something he likes at the same time, which I refused to do, mainly because when he comes home after work, he spends all his time, up until bedtime, gaming. This is around 4 to 4.5 hours of time after he comes in. He has plenty of time to cook a quick but decent meal for himself and enjoy his hobby. Once again this week, I cooked with my kids, and like I told my husband, I didn't leave him any. He was upset, but ordered takeout. The second time he went around to his parents' house and his mom cooked for him. The next day I got a phone call from my mother-in-law saying I was a jerk for not cooking for my husband, and that I spent all day doing my hobby, my actual job, and why shouldn't he enjoy his hobby? Which again, he still can and does do. I also still cook for him on the days I'm not cooking anything foreign. Am I the jerk for refusing to cook for him on these days? Not the jerk, but I think you have bigger problems than your husband not liking foreign food. He doesn't respect your time, effort, or job, and is comfortable insulting you casually at a gathering. That is genuinely concerning that he put her down like that. No wonder it was uncomfortable. Also, what do you want to bet he ranted about her to his mom when he was there? Yeah, he would never be eating another home-cooked meal from me. Not the jerk. He was an absolute jerk for making that comment in front of company and for his wording. He didn't want smelly food. Well, you did as he asked and didn't leave him a share so he wouldn't be forced to eat it. No matter how little time one has, everyone has 5 minutes to do an omelet, cut some mozzarella and some tomatoes on the side, sprinkle salt, basil, and oil, and boom, food. If he doesn't want to do that and has to run to mommy to feed him, then there are way larger issues than his childish palate. Not the jerk. If he's gaming 4.5 hours a night, then how is he doing his fair share of parenting when he's home? He sounds selfish, rude, and entitled. OP. What I mean is that he works for a couple of days, then has a day off. On his days off, he cooks lunch, cleans, spends time with the kids, etc. When he's working, he comes home and plays video games. Thank you for answering my question. You've clarified things, but that doesn't sound like his fair share. When do you get to take a weekday evening off so that you can do your hobby uninterrupted while he cooks dinner and takes care of the kids? Why does he only have to parent on his days off? Also, what he said about your cooking to your friends was wildly rude, and he owes you an apology. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. I could really go for some fish and chips myself right now. I told my son I'd rather have his ex-wife as a daughter than him as my son after he got cut out of our will. 16 years ago, my son Matthew had a daughter with his now ex-wife, Josie. I've always thought of Josie as my own daughter, so when they divorced 7 years ago due to my son cheating, I was conflicted and disappointed. Josie wasn't particularly close with any of her family, so my husband and I naturally took them in. Josie was an angel. She had insisted that we didn't have to lift a finger more than before we had taken them in, and though she was hurt, she kept civil around Matthew. My husband and I held a huge hand in raising their daughter, Ruth, because Matthew remarried less than a year later and now has a 4-year-old son after disowning Ruth. 2 years ago, my husband was diagnosed with lung cancer. It was hard on everyone, especially Ruth. They were extremely close. She told him about her girlfriends and boyfriends before anyone else and has always wanted him to be the one to walk her down the aisle at her wedding. Matt rarely ever visited and never answered our calls, often saying that we had other kids, so it wasn't like my husband was suffering alone. Last night, Matt stopped by to talk about inheritance. He never mentioned Josie nor Ruth and hinted that he thought he should get more inheritance than his siblings the entire time. My husband and I shared awkward looks until he decided to cut in. He explained that everyone would get a piece, but he'd focus more on Ruth and Bonnie, one of our other grandkids. Matt got angry and said that Ruth was just a jerk and that his son deserved more than her. My husband got furious after that and left the room, saying that he wouldn't include Matthew at all. Matt yelled back and turned to me, saying that Ruth wasn't worth it because she'd grow up to be a jerk just like her mother. I told him that I'd rather have her mother as my daughter than have him as my son, and insisted that he leave. I'm getting phone calls from Matt's wife and family friends saying that my husband and I overreacted and he was just angry that we were playing favorites. Am I the jerk? Edit. To clear some things up, Josie did not cheat on Matthew. Josie and Matthew met later in college, and Josie was known as a party girl before that. Ruth isn't the product of an affair, but we are planning on getting a DNA test because what Matthew said has gotten under Ruth's skin. She was at the house when this occurred and overheard it. When it came to taking in Josie and Ruth, we didn't hesitate because Josie is not from here. She and Matt lived in another country until he moved them here a few months before he got caught cheating, and they had nowhere else to go as Josie was a stay-at-home mom. I had no intentions of choosing Josie over Matt then and now, and I never discouraged Matt from visiting. I tried to make it very clear that we weren't picking and choosing when we took Josie in. We just wanted her and our granddaughter to be safe and have a good home. Make sure to leave him and his son $1 each so they can't contest the will by saying you forgot about them. Not the jerk. Dude abandoned his family and only came back sniffing around when his dad was in a bad state and he thought he might get something out of it. He couldn't even be civil and fake nice long enough for that conversation. Not the jerk. I feel sorry for OP and her husband that their son turned out to be a truly bad man. Glad she is a firm enough character herself to appreciate the kindness and love she's received from Josie and that she supports her and Ruth now. Hold steady, OP. Ignore Matt's wife and friends who are only looking for a payday. Don't be swayed by these fakers. Peace to you both. Manager targeted me because of my family priorities. It cost her her job. I have worked at a certain home improvement store for close to a decade now, about 8 years roughly. The first 7 was in North Carolina before I moved up further north to be with my best friend and her husband, who I learned was pregnant with my first godchild. As such, I transferred up to a store in the area and put my nose to the grindstone. I worked garden before and did that for some months before I started to be moved from department to department as this store was low on staff. However, this was not full-time. My old HR had dropped the ball and this store believed I wanted part-time. Having already moved, I grabbed a part-time overnight job at a gym to make ends meet and continued to work, all the while asking repeatedly for full-time at the main job and never getting a definitive word back or change. Several months into this, my goddaughter was born. As I lived with my friends during this time, and during the time of lockdown, I spent quite a lot of time helping to raise her, and we became close. I would take time off that I was allotted to help look after her, and there were no problems. Half a year into this change, and I had made a good name for myself. I did not have a good deal of friends per se, but I was respected for my work ethic and willingness to help out anyone in any department that asked me. Enter a new assistant manager. The ASM was abrasive to staff and used to getting her way. The first I heard of her was when she outright fired a girl working the front desk because of a logo on her jacket. Myself and several other employees organized a walkout in protest of this and succeeded in getting the store manager to reverse the decision made by the ASM. This was not our first walkout, having done this in the past whenever another ASM, the current's predecessor, made mean comments about a cashier. Soon after this, I was given full-time by the ops manager, working and receiving for a cantankerous supervisor. We often did not get along, especially as my godchild got older, and I took on babysitting duties while her parents worked and slept. It was not something I minded, as I adored the kid. I often talked about her with my coworkers and loved to show pictures and stories. However, this was not something shared by my higher-ups. My supervisor was upset that I could not work overtime to help him, as we were the only 2 in receiving for the store, because of either my second job or babysitting. And soon after the second walkout, I was made aware of a rumor circulating around the store that the kid was in fact my own daughter, that I had fathered outside of my friend's husband's knowledge. The source of the rumor was unknown, but my ASM had made disparaging remarks to me in the past about men taking care of kids, so I had my theories. My holiday plans, asked off in advance as soon as our electronic system allowed, were canceled without explanation, both Thanksgiving and Christmas. I had never missed a major holiday since I moved north, and I had asked the same days off the year prior and had gotten them off before the ASM arrived. Strike one. And soon after this, my supervisor, whom I work closely with every day, had a positive test, forcing me, per company rules, to self-isolate until I could get a positive or negative test myself. During this week, as it took a full week to find a place with enough room to give tests, I was harassed repeatedly by text and phone call by both management and my supervisor to track down an at-home test and get back to work ASAP. All the while, I had to inform everyone I was in contact with, including my friends, family, and roommates, that I had been exposed, risking their own holiday trips and plans. Strike 2. Thankfully, my test was negative. A week after this, the Northeast gets slammed by a snow and ice storm. I drive a 4-wheeled vehicle, and so made it in. But near the end of my shift, I was made aware that my friend's husband had been injured and stranded in a car accident on the ice, and so left to get them home and their car to a service station. To add to it all, they have lost power in their home with an infant, leaving me the only person they could turn to with a vehicle and power. I will admit, I had a few sick hours left, but informed work that I would be out on a family emergency. For that week, I called out each day with ongoing family emergency, with snow and ice still coating the streets and power still down throughout our city. And every day I was hounded by calls from management, demanding I return to work regardless. This would have not only risked my own safety, but would have stranded my family at my apartment with no way to get supplies or get home once the power returned. Strike 3. I was done. Early in the morning that following Sunday, I walked into work and placed my resignation letter on HR's desk. That is important later. I had tendered it to be immediate, as I live in an at-will state. Was it petty? Yes, I will freely admit that. I had given 8 years of my life to this company and asked for very little in return. As I was leaving, I crossed paths with my supervisor, who asked angrily if I was finally coming back to work. I informed him of my decision to leave, ignoring his provocations, and left to go home and sleep. Several hours later, I received the gift that would ignite my semi-accidental revenge. A single text from my ASM. We will see how long you can take care of your love child without us. Well, well, seems I found my probable source. My friends had been made aware of this rumor from the start. I did not hide anything from them, and they did not want any kind of rumor, however unlikely, to reach them from anyone but me. They are my closest friends and compatriots, and have given me the greatest gift in the form of my godchild, whom they insist I call my niece, as I am family. Love child feels like an insult against her, and I am not cool with that, and neither are they. However, they informed me of the monumental mess-up my now former ASM had made. It was time for corporate HR to be made aware, and so I began to compile my evidence, the texts from my supervisor, the call records and messages left, and this holy grail of a text message. If I was going to leave, I was at the very least going to give some blowback on the team that had been so willing to target me. What happened after is secondhand from friends I had that still worked at the store, and so I cannot entirely verify all of it. But the ASM played herself. The following day, a meeting of management and supervisors was convened, where the ASM made it known that I had been fired, not self-terminated, for job abandonment and immorality. And unless I am grossly misinformed about the nature of American retail work, immorality is not a fireable event. So to my supervisor's credit, he defended me to the ASM and was fired on the spot. The store's HR rep, having earlier gotten my printed termination letter on his desk, made it known that I had indeed not been fired but left on my own, and the ASM attempted to fire him as well in front of the staff, and from there it spiraled. According to my source, entire departments began to walk out or outright quit, having had their own problems with the ASM. Appliances quit to a man. Garden left with their manager to work at a competitor's, as he had been working on this well before my saga began. Front desk walked out in protest as it came out that the ASM had threatened and blackmailed several part-time workers to not wear their headscarves if they wanted hours. Lumber, receiving's main partner, quit. Pro desk joined the front desk protest. Cashiers, both head cashiers quit, and the other trained cashiers walked out with the desks. Ops manager had informed the district manager and quit outright before he arrived, walking out with the HR rep and my old supervisor. My source's last report of the ASM was seeing her sprinting to her car after having heard that the district staff was inbound, and the store manager was forced to shut the store down for the next 2 days. Last I've heard. I've been in contact with the other injured parties, and we're compiling all the evidence we've collected, as several of the families are hiring lawyers. I suspect the company will attempt to keep this quiet, I just never suspected that anything like this would happen. I have a full-time position at the gym upcoming, and I've been enjoying the extra sleep and time I get to spend with my family. I'm never working 56 to 64-hour weeks ever again, and I will never darken the doorstep of that store again. I hope my ASM enjoyed the temporary rush of power. I suspect she won't get it ever again, at least not in manager positions. I can work in a group? Are you sure? Background. My senior year of high school, I went on foreign exchange to Brazil. I chose Brazil because it's a beautiful tropical country, and I'm an idiot who thinks just because I'm super smart with math and science that a whole language, Portuguese, would come easily to me. It didn't. I struggled with the language and found myself in an awkward situation. I'm a clever bloke, and I'm used to being able to express that. I'm that guy who likes to know how and why everything works the way it does, and I'm used to launching into conversations and explanations about how things work at the drop of a hat. But here I sat, unable to express myself as eloquently as I wanted to. So I turned from a talkative / mildly obnoxious know-it-all into a quiet kid. Necessary background. While I was in Brazil on exchange, I was placed into public school. Now for my American friends. Brazilian high school is a little different from American. Instead of students going from class to class, the teachers would switch classrooms between each subject. The teacher who is the subject of this story was the English teacher, a man who looked almost identical to Weird Al. He began his classes by walking into the room, holding out some English assignments, throwing an English music video on the TV with Portuguese subtitles, and then he'd read the newspaper or a book for the rest of the class. During his first class, while reading his newspaper, he loudly explained that group work was allowed on all assignments and tests, at which point everyone in the class looked at me. Clearly, he was not aware that he had an American exchange student in his class. Subsequently, every one of his classes for the rest of the term, all the students would form a long conga line around my desk, and he wouldn't notice. Of course, the assignments were trivial for me, the equivalent of middle school English, so I'd knock them out instantly, then provided explanations in broken Portuguese along with the answers. The smarter kids in the class would check their answers against mine and give better explanations. By the end of the year, everyone in his class had a perfect grade. Our teacher was ecstatic. Clearly, his teaching style of playing music videos and ignoring students was a success. He threw a small party for us with food and drinks. At the end of this party, as we were all leaving, I stopped to talk to him in English for the first time since beginning in his class. Me. Hey, Professor T, I just wanted to thank you for a fun class. Professor T. Of course. You're American? Me. Yes, you didn't know? I left him there, slack-jawed, and with a class of students speaking very passable English. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter she should change her wedding dress to green? The oldest daughter is straight-laced and is doing the whole get married and have a traditional life. She places a lot of emphasis on her upcoming wedding. My youngest is the opposite. While I don't agree with some of her choices, things she takes, travel, and, I guess, to be a modern-day hippie, she likes the term digital nomad. She's an adult. She pays for her way of life. There's not much more I can do. Oldest kicked my youngest out of the wedding party. It's because my youngest has eloped with her boyfriend. The guy is about 10 years older than her, divorced with 2 kids. I think what set my oldest off is that her fiance comes from money, and the wedding will be stupid lavish. However, my youngest daughter's husband has a lot more money, and he wholeheartedly supports my daughter's artistic temperament. The oldest is being told by her in-laws that her sister doesn't have the same family values as what she's being married into. My oldest has banned her sister from the wedding and says she's going no contact with her sister over her lifestyle choices. I told my oldest what's done is done. She needs to grow up and not expect everyone to live by her lofty standards. She also needs to stop being jealous of her sister, or she might as well make her wedding dress green. Now she has banned me from the wedding. My husband isn't going to go now that I'm forbidden, or his other daughter is forbidden. My oldest is going on a rampage on social media, talking about how her dad refuses to walk her down the aisle at the wedding. I told her she was playing the victim for no reason. Oldest, her fiance, and his family are all blasting up on social media, saying we are immoral people. Not the jerk. Sounds like your oldest daughter has been brainwashed by a cult or something. I'd honestly be worried about her if I were you. Maybe have an intervention. I'm not sure if she has been brainwashed or if she's just willingly ready to drop anyone and anything to marry into a wealthy family and have the perfect wedding and perfect life. I'm also sure that she's upset that her sister was able to marry rich while being true to herself. I will honestly be shocked if the eldest daughter even makes it down the aisle without imploding. If she's ready to drop her sister and parents in a heartbeat, she will probably be hiring and firing her bridal party, fighting with vendors, and throwing a tantrum if the most minor things don't go right. I also find it funny that the groom's stuck-up parents think the sister being an artist is beneath them, but social media drama is real classy. My Karen stepmom is jealous of me spending time with my dad. I'm 14, and I live with my dad and stepmom. My mom passed when I was 5, and my dad and stepmom got together when I was 9, and they got me to move in with my nan. 2 years ago, my nan had a stroke, and she had to go to a nursing home, so I moved in with my dad and stepmom. Ever since my dad and stepmom got together, I couldn't spend time with just my dad. My stepmom had to come too. I also got the vibe she didn't really like me, so I had no idea why she always wanted to hang out with me. It made hanging out with my dad really awkward. When I moved back in with them, it got worse, because every time we were having a conversation, she'd come in like, "What are we talking about?" and just join in the conversation even if it had nothing to do with her. If she could, she would stand or sit between us too. I mentioned it to my dad a couple times, and he said he'd never noticed, and he doesn't think it's true that it's every time. He was like, "It's her house too. She can hang out with us if she wants." I don't think it was getting through to him that it was every time, and it was weirding me out. So next time she did it, I was like, "Hey, why do you always come in and join every conversation I have with my dad and stand between us?" And she laughed and said, "Oh, I'm just a bit of a jealous person." And when I asked what she meant, she was like, "I get jealous when my husband spends time with other girls." I told her that was really weird, and I'm not another girl, I'm his daughter. My dad and stepmom keep insisting it was a joke, but it really creeped me out, and I can't help but take it seriously. I asked her to stop butting into our conversations, and she was like, "Oh, so I need your permission to talk to my own husband in my own home?" Which is definitely not what I was saying at all. Now my stepmom is acting all hurt and upset, and my dad wants me to apologize for hurting her feelings. He says I deliberately overreacted to her joke just because I don't like her, and I was taking any excuse to be mean to her and exclude her. But I really feel like it was a weird joke to make, even if she didn't 100% mean it like that, and I think I have the right to be weirded out by it. Plus, I think I have the right to ask to spend some time with just my dad, and it doesn't mean I'm trying to exclude her. Wait, you lived with your nan from when your dad and stepmom got married until your nan was no longer able to take care of you, correct? I'm assuming this wasn't your choice since you were a little kid at the time. She's absolutely jealous of you, and she wasn't joking. You weren't allowed to live with your own parent, for goodness sake. I don't know who is more of the jerk here, her or your dad, but it sure isn't you. Not the jerk, and both of the adults in this situation should be ashamed of themselves. OP. Yeah, they were like, "You're moving in with Nan now. Bye." You deserve a better father. I'm so sorry that he treats you the way that he does. One day he will regret it, but hopefully by that time, you will be the strong, independent, successful woman that you're meant to be. Your dad literally remarried and then threw you out to live with your nan. Horrible. If I were you, I'd throw that in his face. Your stepmom is probably jealous because you are his previous wife's kid, and she doesn't want any trace of her. Your dad does not love you properly. Both of them are despicable people, especially your father for letting this happen. Dad can love her and still make bad parenting decisions or put the stepmother first. Please do not say that to a teenager. It is extremely hurtful to feel that way. It can also cause harm. OP, someone can love you and still do bad things, but that does not mean it is okay for them to do so or that you should put up with it. Same goes for you loving them. You can love someone and forgive them and still put boundaries or distance yourself from them. What is going on here isn't okay, but no stranger online can say whether your father loves you or not. I would bring it up to your dad that you want to talk to him one-on-one. Then explain to him that them sending you off to your grandma's as soon as he remarried already made things weird. So when this joke came around, it didn't feel like a joke. Maybe some family therapy can help. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend her nannies were paid to raise her? I, 21 male, have a girlfriend named Anna, 21 female, who comes from a very rich family while I came from a middle-class family. And while I did grow up with a lot of privileges, none of them were in the same level as hers. Anna grew up in a home where house staff nannies and bodyguards were commonplace, and while she's a very nice and down-to-earth person, she always had a very sheltered reality. For example, she's the kind of person who has a savings account, doesn't eat out every day, and regularly donates to charity, but thinks that Apple products are perfect gifts for whenever she doesn't know what to get someone. A few days back, we were talking about holidays, and I asked her how she spent Mother's Day. Since her mother passed when she was a baby and her father never remarried, she just said that the only usual thing she did on Mother's Day was that she visited her mom's grave in the morning with her father. I got confused by that. Then I asked how she spent the rest of the day, and she mentioned that growing up, she would make cards and give them to the nannies, and they would spend the day playing and eating the sweets she asked her father to order. I just kind of laughed at that point, and she asked me what I was laughing about. Then I told her, "You know, the nannies were just doing their jobs, right?" She got annoyed and told me that she knew, but they raised and loved her, and the least she could do was to give them their due. And that was when I think I might be the jerk. After she told me that, I joked, "Yeah, I bet the fat paycheck certainly helped them to love you." Because when I said that, she got quiet, grabbed her things, and left. Since then, she's been cold towards me and told me she's rethinking our relationship, but I really think she's overreacting. What do you guys think? Am I the jerk? Karen expects me to pay for half of her furniture. My girlfriend, who's 23, and I, 24 male, just moved in together yesterday. I moved into her apartment that she had shared with her roommate before I moved in, so the apartment was half furnished since her roommate took half of everything. I lived in an incredibly small bachelor-style studio, so the only things I really had was a queen bed, a couch that she hated, and a TV. We agreed to keep my bed and bed frame since she had a full. She suggested we go to IKEA to restock the house, and she was super excited about it. When we got there, she filled our entire cart with furniture, kitchen, and bathroom stuff. She was asking my opinion on stuff, and I was happy to give it, but I saw the bill racking up pretty quickly. She ended up getting so much stuff that I saw as pointless, like bathroom rugs, a soap dispenser, a dresser, even though she already has one. She got a second matching bedside table for my side of the bed, some art for the apartment, and 2 giant rugs. One for the bedroom and one for the living room. And this is just some of the stuff I didn't even think that we needed. There was plenty more. We ended up having 2 full carts of stuff, and before we even went to check out, she said, "Everything else we can just get on Amazon." I was genuinely in shock. She thought we needed anything more besides all of this crap. But we went to check out, and just like I thought, the total was almost $1,400. She asked the cashier if we could split the bill halfway on 2 cards, and I was horrified. I told her no way was I paying half for all of this. She looked surprised, and we quickly began to argue. She told me this was for the both of us, but I disagreed and said I didn't need half of this stuff. After about 5 minutes of arguing and holding up the line, she paid and we left. The entire hour ride home, we argued, and when we got home, I was given the silent treatment after being called a cheap jerk. Am I the jerk here? Update. After reading many of your comments, I apologized to my girlfriend and Venmo'd her for half. But as of now, I'm currently in trouble because my girlfriend saw this post. Not from Reddit, but from a TikTok. Currently in trouble again. Thanks for the judgment and making me see the light. You're the jerk. If you thought things were too expensive or too much, the time to say so was while shopping. She was asking your opinion and you agreed to the purchases. Why on earth did you just assume she was paying for everything? And a good portion of what you object to is honestly ridiculous. God forbid she want art or rugs in your apartment, right? You're the jerk. Just like this comment. The time to have discussed the prices of things was before you put her on the spot in the checkout line. My partner and I moved from his college apartment to a place of our own a few years back, and a lot of the stuff in the college apartment belonged to our roommates. When we went supply shopping for the new place, I paid for everything, as he wasn't making as much as me at the time. The important part here is I announced that before we left for the store. He didn't expect it of me, nor did he wait until the end of the trip to tell me he couldn't split the bill. Definitely you're the jerk. I understand OP's cheap ways, as I am a frugal franny myself, but some things must be discussed before the checkout line. Apparently, OP thinks bathroom rugs are unnecessary? You're the jerk. And a soap dispenser for the bathroom? Please tell me he at least uses a soap bar. You're the jerk. You moved in. She's making it a home for you both. If you disagreed with what she was getting, you probably had hours to speak up, given the size of IKEA. My husband and I go to IKEA together. Most purchases, he asks where I'd like to put this, and we discuss if it's really needed. You seem to have led her on by liking and agreeing to what she was picking. You're not a bachelor anymore. You need to communicate and work in a team. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. Communication is very important in relationships. You can't just assume the other person is on the same page you are, especially when it comes to finances. Am I the jerk for embarrassing my husband in front of my parents? Me, 28 female, and my husband, 29 male, have been married for 5 years. My husband was a nurse until he told me he wanted to become a doctor. I was fully supportive, and he's now in his first year of medical school. I've been supporting the both of us as he cannot work while in school, but recently found out our rent was being raised by $500 at the end of our contract in April. This was honestly the last straw as it pushed us past where we were financially comfortable, so I raised the idea of us buying a home. This had been a conversation for years, but my husband had always said we could after he paid off his school debt from nursing, paid off early 2020. I asked my mother, who's a real estate agent, who told me that with what we'd be paying, it would be better for that money to go towards mortgage repayments and not rent. I brought this all up to my husband, who shut it down almost immediately. He told me our agreement was to wait until he had paid off all his debt. I told him that was for nursing and that he was in school for 6 years, which was hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt, and some doctors don't pay off their debt for 20 plus years. I told him I had been supportive of this career change and by financially supporting the household, but that it was the best financial decision for us both, but also relieved the financial burden for me. I brought up the savings we had for our deposit and how we could afford something small and modest within budget, but he told me it was in our interest to use that money to pay off his loans. I asked him if he realized the financial burden this would put on me, but he said it was temporary, and eventually he'd make more than me, so it would be even, and I'd agreed to this. My mother called and asked if we were going to look into buying a house, but I told her we weren't, and we'd be looking for somewhere cheaper to rent instead. She insisted we at least consider it because it made the most financial sense, and asked if it was because we didn't have a down deposit. I told her that we were probably going to use that to pay off my husband's debt, and he didn't want more debt until he was debt-free from student loans. Days later, my mother and father came for lunch and told us they had news. They offered to gift us the down payment for a home. I was over the moon and shocked by the offer. Once they left, my husband exploded on me, claiming that I emasculated him and made him look bad in front of my parents. I told him I never asked for this, but we should take it as it was a privilege most people don't get and would relieve so much financial burden on me. He refuses to talk to me or my parents until we apologize for shaming him, but I refused to. I apologized, but told him I wouldn't make my parents as they had done nothing wrong. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Just something to consider, but if you help pay off his student loans and financially support him for the next 10 years, say then he divorces you. You're left with nothing and him a debt-free life, earning a doctor's salary. That was exactly my thought, and that he's actually planning for it. Otherwise, why wouldn't he want to buy a shared asset, like a home, versus something that will only benefit himself? Right? Not the jerk at all. Your husband chose a huge career change. He won't be making substantial money for at least 7 to 8 years. You can't be expected to put your financial goals and life on hold while he goes through school. That's not fair. He's being outrageous. This isn't all about him. My husband went through medical school and is now a resident. He's contributed as much as he could financially through all of this, but I paid for our wedding, our house down payment, and another $10,000 in repairs for the house when we moved in. None of this fazed my husband's ego because we're a partnership. He never acted this way. Absolutely. I'm getting my PhD and have substantial student debt. My partner and I are closing on a house soon because we realized it's exactly the same cost to rent. I would never ask my partner to pay for my student loans because they're mine and therefore my responsibility, not his. OP, not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your husband is straight up ridiculous. Is he otherwise a good partner? Is he thoughtful? Is he kind? Does he respect you in every other area of your life besides this one? And I mean everywhere. Because if he doesn't, I would even wonder if it's worth being married to someone who acts like this. His behavior is honestly laughable. If I were you, I'd take your parents' offer with or without your husband. And put the house in your name only. You'll add him when he starts paying the mortgage. Not the jerk, your husband is though. You need to look carefully and dispassionately at this situation. He doesn't want to buy a house with you, a large financial commitment that binds you and him. He instead wants you to put the money you've earned and you've saved to pay off his student debt while you support him through school. You see the problem here? After school, he could leave you, not have a house tying you together, and have his student loan burden greatly reduced because your money has gone towards it. Someone so wholly selfish and unwilling to consider the feelings and well-being of a partner isn't in this for the long term. I hate to be so negative, but smart money is on him leaving you when he graduates, and with the reduced student loan thanks to your hard work. Protect yourself, sis. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. She should totally call into Dave Ramsey's show. I can hear old Dave right now.
Marriage is a sanctimony. That's not his debt, that's both of y'all's debt.
It's Taco Tuesday, jerk. I used to enter recipe competitions for fun as a bored housewife. I was good at finding them online, I had a system, knew what the promoters wanted, and I usually won. So some guy starts some kind of health and fitness website and runs a recipe competition to promote it. I do the thing, a Buddha bowl if you're wondering, and as usual, I'm announced the winner. Congrats, it's Taco Tuesday, you've won $1,000. It's usually not a cash prize, but okay, awesome. Except, he never comes good with the money and just ghosts me instead. I decided to send one last message and move on with my life. I can use the recipe and photo again since it was never published. He finally responds and he's hostile. I'm like, sorry, what? And he proceeds to threaten me with his goons, all like, I know people in Sydney who will mess you up. Oh, he thinks I'm in Sydney? And I tell him to just forget it. I already accepted I'd never see the money. I start Googling this guy and come to find out he's a complete jerk. The proper gym bro, tough guy with no social skills. I also discover he's opening a Taco Era in Sydney. I infiltrated his Facebook friends list with my Creeper account. I added a whole bunch of his friends and family first, so I'd show as having friends in common, and then I used my new position to gather intel. I made a Google account with his mother's name and photo. I'm really that creepy. And left reviews saying his tacos tasted disgusting. Then I made a glitter bomb, using a greeting card that opens landscape style with like a tissue paper full of glitter glued to the insides, and sent it to him at his restaurant. I Googled his email address and found his post on Gumtree looking for a chef. So I make a new email address and I'm like, I'm a friend of the most common Facebook friend's last name, family, and they mentioned you're opening a Taco Era. I'm moving to Sydney. I was a chef at my uncle's Mexican restaurant, and do you have any jobs available? You do? Oh, how exciting. Will you please give me a chance? Great. I look forward to working with you. Every day I had a credible excuse not to show and milked that until he was just about done with my crap. Then I left a message with an employee. I can't come into work today because Taco Guy didn't give It's Taco Tuesday her prize for the recipe competition he ran on his failed website, and then he threatened her. After then, I waited for him to contact me. He was a little upset, and I confessed everything. All the little mind games, all the petty crap, canceled orders, all of it. He told me he'd pay me if I stopped. I declined the offer. I said I'd rather have $1,000 worth of fun at his expense. Maybe next time, don't threaten people with goons. I said I might not ever get bored of this, and the last thing I ever said, every time you have a bad day, you're going to wonder if I was somehow involved. Am I the jerk for financially blackmailing my daughter and controlling where she goes to school? I, 42 female, have 2 kids with my ex, Mike, who's 47, including Val, she's 17. She's in her senior year of high school and deciding where she wants to apply for college. We've been lucky enough to save a college fund totaling $150,000 for Val. When looking at schools she was interested in, I sat her down and talked her through the process plus her fund. Mike lives in another state, but knew we were having this talk. I told her how much she had and discussed different options. I told her how state schools are typically cheaper and how she might have to take out a loan if she chose a more prestigious school or didn't qualify for scholarships. I told her that if she didn't spend all of the money on schooling, it would still be hers after graduation. I also brought up how staying close to home would save on living expenses if she didn't want to live on campus. I wanted her to make an informed decision with all the facts, especially financially. Because of this, Val has looked at a range of state and Ivy schools. Mike called me furious, saying that Val was considering a school close to where I live and that it was only because I had scared her into it by telling her she couldn't afford other schools. I told him I'd had an age-appropriate conversation about college, finances, and student debt with Val, and she was making decisions that are in her best interest, not mine or his. Before this, Val had considered moving in with her dad as he lived driving distance to an Ivy League school she wanted to go to. Now she is apparently looking at other schools and isn't as on board with that discussion anymore. Mike said that I had financially blackmailed her so that she wouldn't go live with him, and that I'd only told her all these things to scare her financially. Edit. Wow, I didn't realize this would get so many judgments, but lots to read through, and thank you to everyone for sharing your college and university experiences. To clarify, both me and Mike went to the same Ivy League college where we met, so I have nothing against those schools and would 100% support Val choosing one of those schools as they have their own advantages. I got an internship due to the school I went to, so I understand and want those connections for my daughter as well. This conversation is obviously redundant currently, as we don't know what school she'll get accepted into, scholarships, etc. But it kept getting brought up, so here we are. I'll be reading through everyone's judgments. Not the jerk. Observing that Yale costs more than local community college is not blackmail, financial or otherwise. And yes, you did tell her those things to scare her financially. Being scared is the appropriate adult response to paying for an Ivy League school. The contacts you make at an Ivy League can be amazing, especially if you live in the dorms. For example, the mailing lists of jobs is amazing. I didn't go to an Ivy League, but I've dated a couple of women who have. The hidden benefits is an entire world I knew nothing about, and I went to a fancy pants college prep high school. I went to community college, then state university. I wish I had understood as a teenager. I snapped at a Karen at the grocery store when she calls me a bad parent. My son, 6 months old, has been cranky all morning because he's teething. I, 27 male, had to go grocery shopping, and since it's just me taking care of him, he came with me. Normally he's calm when I have him in his baby carrier because right now he just wants to be held by me. But I forgot that at my mom's yesterday, so went in with his stroller to the market. The plan was to be in and out in under 5 minutes because he really wasn't having it today. This lady kept popping up at every aisle I was in. Well, it's a small market too, so it's not like she was intentionally following us. He wouldn't stop crying. Then she'd say, "He's hungry. Why didn't you bring his bottle?" And I would tell her, "No, he's not hungry. He just ate 15 minutes ago." Then it was, "Sure. Hope your daddy remembered to change you this morning." At some point, I picked him up for a little bit. He calmed down when I rocked him, then lost his crap again when we got to the checkout line because I needed to put him back in his stroller so I could put everything on the counter and pay. It was already a stressful day for me. I'm overwhelmed trying to hurry up, putting everything in a bag while my son is crying. This lady is at the checkout line next to me and says, "Maybe next time he should stay at home with Mummy, don't you think?" Normally, I'm not a confrontational person, but this one really got to me. Well, his mom passed away, so why don't you just mind your own darn business already and go? She looked at me a little shocked, and then there were other people there too, so she turned red. The lady didn't say anything to me at all, but then in the parking lot, she apologized about his mom, but she didn't think I needed to be rude and throw that in her face because she didn't know what had happened. I really didn't want to get into it anymore. I just told her to get the heck out of my way and leave me alone. Got in my car and left. I'm home now, more calm, and wondering if she had a point. Because like I said, normally I'm not like that with people, but since it was already a hard day and stuff, it infuriated me so bad. Was it an overreaction though? I get sometimes people think they're helping, when in reality know nothing when it comes to calming a baby and usually brush that off. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She was shaming you for being a father. You were doing your best to care for a 6-month-old as a single parent, and she was following you around harassing you. Edit. Not intentionally following you, but still defiantly harassing you and shaming you at seemingly every opportunity. She should have praised him for being such a kind, loving father to a wonderful son. He was just being a parent. No need to praise or harass. He's doing a great job with a teething kid, yes, but he doesn't need to be patronized and thrown a parade just because he's a father and not a mother. He shouldn't be thrown a parade because he's a father. He should be thrown a parade because he's a parent, and all parents need affirmation when things seem to be just a mess. I'd think most parents in that kind of stressful, "we'll get home soon, buddy" moment would probably prefer to just be left alone by complete strangers. Like, just leave people alone. The random person in the grocery store does not need your commentary, even if you think it's complimentary. Keep your eyes focused on your own work. Parents need support much more than they need praise, although praise can play into support. But the random lady in public is not an authorized member of their support team. When I was a kid, my dad treated a waitress so poorly she quit in the middle of serving us. This happened about 25 years ago, and I still think of it about once a month. My dad used to think of himself as a fancy, business-type gentle fellow. We'd go to restaurants and he'd try to order off-menu at like a chain restaurant. He wouldn't wash his hands before we ate. He'd have the waitstaff bring him lemons and then rinse his hands in lemon juice, because I guess that's what fancy people do. It always took several attempts to seat us because he'd walk around the place trying to find a place to sit worthy of his time. He was insufferable. And as a kid, it turned me into a walking apology for his behavior. One weekend, we went to get dinner, just he and he went through all of his usual behavior. But he was actually in a pretty good mood, so I had high hopes. Unfortunately, as soon as the waitress started taking our drink order, he found out that they were out of real cream for his coffee. He didn't get upset or raise his voice, because that's what the common people did, but he laid right into this poor woman about the sheer temerity of running a restaurant and not having the ability to meet the basic needs of your customers, and then trying to smooth things over with cheap, fake products like non-dairy creamers. He suggested that she was trying to make him sick by feeding him some sort of chemical. I remember her exact face as she just stared at him and took it, not knowing what to say. It haunts me. He ended up just ordering an appetizer and she left politely and never returned. He and I sat in that booth for 30 or 40 minutes until the manager finally came out and went table to table, explaining that the waitress had quit suddenly. My dad was of course offended, and the manager of course offered to give us our meals for free. And that's the part that annoys me the most, that my dad won. Hopefully that poor woman found a better job. Am I the jerk for telling my friend my boyfriend would never date her? I, 26 female, have been with my boyfriend Jason, who's 25, for about 2 years. I've known my friend Stacy for about 8 years. For as long as I've been dating Jason, Stacy has made rude comments about how unattractive she finds him. She always says things like, "I would never date Jason because his nose is too big. It's like a clown nose." That's literally something she said last week. She doesn't say it to Jason's face, just to me. I always ask her to stop, and she does for a bit. But then after a day or two, she'll do it again. It really irritates me. The other day, she made the clown nose comment, and she also made fun of Jason's laugh, and I snapped. I told her that she should stop wasting her time on hating Jason, because if Jason was single, there's no way he'd date her. I also asked if she would like me to make fun of her to her back the way that she does to Jason, and I threatened to do it. As a disclaimer, I would never actually do that. I just said it to prove a point. Stacy started crying and she left my house. She told some of our other friends about the incident, and they said I was a jerk for saying Jason wouldn't date her. They said it really hurt her feelings, and since she's single and I'm not, I should have had some tact. Stacy also said my comments implied that she was undateable, even though I never said that. I just said that Jason wouldn't date her. Anyway, it's a bit of a mess of a situation. I wanted to ask this sub if I'm the jerk. So am I? Not the jerk. Your friend is a sicko. She either has a crush on him, so she tries to constantly insult him to hide it, or she's extremely jealous of you having a boyfriend, so she's projecting hard. Either way, she sounds like a crappy manipulator by trying to twist your words and running to others. She probably also told the friends a completely different story of what had happened, most likely making herself appear like the victim in that situation. Not the jerk. I'm kind of feeling like she is interested in him and is making the comments to throw you off. Not the jerk. Why are you even friends with someone like that? OP. Not really sure, to be honest. I think it was mostly a friendship of convenience, plus the fact that we had known each other for so long. If she's willing to talk about your boyfriend behind his back, she'll have no problem talking smack about you two. Oh wait, she just did that. She is not your friend. Am I the jerk for wanting to evict my sister? About 5 years ago, my dad had a heart attack. The medical bills are through the roof. My parents didn't want to lose their home, so my fiance at the time bought the house out because she had the money. She got the legal documents saying my parents could live there for the rest of their lives, and after their passing, the house reverts to her. We moved across the country for work, letting my dad and mom stay in the house rent-free, and they pay the utilities. We pay the taxes and whatever repairs they need. My sister moved back to my parents with her new husband. They've been trying to get my parents to rewrite the will. My dad said, we don't own the house anymore, and my sister flipped. She said it's now her house, and she's been helping my parents for 2 years. Her husband has been fixing around the house, mowing, and he fixed a broken sink. My sister called my wife, saying she was robbed of her inheritance. My wife said she'd sell my sister the house at current market value. My sister is telling everyone that my wife is a jerk and trying to profit off the family. My parents are now wanting to get a mortgage to repurchase the house. They then want to split the house costs with the family after they pass. This is being fed into my parents every day. The problem is that they want to get a mortgage and then they would have to pay that monthly when they have no bills now. My sister is feeding lies to my parents who are elderly and I want them out of the house. So I started the eviction process on my sister and her husband. My parents think I am an absolute jerk, but this was never an issue until my sister and her husband moved in. Not the jerk, but if your parents can now afford to pay a mortgage bill, then let them buy back the house on the condition that it and any financial obligations revert 100% to your sister on their passing. Am I the jerk for letting my wife sleep on the couch and going to bed? My wife has a habit of falling asleep on the couch. She is a very heavy sleeper. When we sit down to watch TV, she always tells me to wake her up to go to bed so she can take her medicine. Well, 90% of the time when I try to wake her up, she just tells me 5 more minutes, several times for a couple of hours. Sometimes it even gets past midnight before I can get her up. I'm exhausted from the day and I want to go to sleep too. So the last time this happened, I tried to get her up for about an hour and a half. She just got annoyed when I tried. So when 11:30 rolled around, I just went to bed. The next morning, she was furious. Genuinely curious if I'm making a jerk move. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She's in charge of where she sleeps, not you. I wouldn't take that crap from a partner. OP. Yeah, I'm starting to feel like I'm just a glorified servant to her. I would just tell her that from now on, you will either not wake her up once, whatever you want to do, but tell her ahead of time and stick to it. Eventually, she will either figure out how to do it on her own, get up when you tell her the first time, or sleep on the couch. But it is helpful if you set what she should expect from you ahead of time. Entitled parent left their kid at the airport. Back when I used to work at an airport, I often dealt with kids traveling without parents. This was a paid service called Unaccompanied Minors, available to everyone under 18, but mandatory to kids under the age of 12 who traveled alone. The rule is that the parent or guardian, or whoever escorts them, for the sake of clarity, I'll just refer to them all as parents from this point, has to stay at the airport until the plane is in the air. This was in case the flight was canceled, because the paid service did not cover anyone staying with the kid until the next flight. The most extreme case would obviously be that there'd be no flight available that day anymore, in which case the kid would have to go home and come back the next day. Obviously, most parents were fine with going to the gate with their kids and staying until the very last minute. In all my years, I only had trouble with one entitled dad. He came to the business counter with his kid, which was already a big no-no, as checking in unsupervised kids takes longer than average, and the business counter was, well, supposed to be a fast lane for business class and high-tier passengers. The dad chose his own gold card, so I bit back my annoyance and asked the person next to me to check in my queue until I was done. I gave the dad all the forms he had to fill, which already annoyed him. The kid was obviously under 10 and seemed very sweet. She looked relaxed, and I guessed she had done this plenty of times. Over the years, you learn to spot the ones who are not accustomed to traveling alone. The dad gave me back the forms and asked, "So, where do I leave her?" I got a bit confused, but told him, like always, that he had to stay at the airport until the plane was in the air. Entitled dad. What? No, I paid for her to be accompanied. Me. Well, yeah, from the gate to the plane and from the plane to arrivals. Entitled dad. I have a meeting in a town 3 hours away. I can't stay with her. Me. Sir, what if the flight is canceled? We'd have to call you back. She'd stay here with you, wouldn't she? Me. That's not a possibility. Sir, you agree to the terms when you pay. I didn't pay for this. Her mother did, and she told me I could just leave the kid with you. At this point, the kid started crying. Daddy, please, come with me. Don't start. You like flying, don't you? Kid, Mom always comes with me. I don't care. I don't have the time. I want to speak to your manager. While we waited for my supervisor, we heard an announcement through the loudspeakers about a car in the no parking zone. The entitled dad went, "Crap!" and ran away, leaving his daughter at my counter. She started crying in earnest, and I panicked that the dad was taking this opportunity to bail. My supervisor came. We closed my counter completely. The queue was almost empty at this point, and took the kid aside to talk over our options, hoping that the dad would come back. After 5 minutes and no dad later, we tried to call him. His number was on the papers he had signed. No answer. Then we tried the mom, whose contact info was also on the papers. She said she'd call the dad and asked if there was any way we could take the kid to the gate if he didn't appear, if she promised she'd be there in about 30 minutes. We told her that there was still plenty of time before the flight left and that they could skip the security queue so we could make a little exception and wait for her at the check-in with the kid, but that we wouldn't let the kid go to the gate without the parent. The mother was understanding and told us that either she or the dad would be there soon. A few minutes later, the dad did come back, arguing over the phone with who we assumed was the mom. He yanked the daughter away and took her through security. We felt bad, but thought that was that. Nope. I went back to my counter to finish the check-in and then got a call from the gate telling me that the dad had left the kid with them. Obviously, there's a lot to do before a flight leaves, so they couldn't really look after her, and they asked if I could try to see him and tell him to come back. I didn't manage to spot him, and my supervisor told me to go sit with the kid while she, again, called the mom. My shift was about to end, so I didn't have to hurry anywhere except home, and I agreed to work a little overtime. The kid was in tears, and my shift manager had to get involved. While my supervisor called the mom, the shift manager called the airline asking if we can allow the kid on the flight if there's no parent present when the flight leaves. We were a ground handling company and did not directly work for any airline. They told us straight up that no. Fortunately, I then got a call from my supervisor telling me the mom had arrived. To make things easier at the security, me and the kid went back to check-in. The mom signed new forms and escorted the kid through security again. The kid made the flight fine and it left on time. The mom was so embarrassed about the whole incident, but didn't really stay to explain the dad's behavior, and well, it wasn't really our business anymore. She did say this was the first and last time the dad would ever escort the kid and thanked us for doing all we could. She was obviously upset and overwhelmed, but we're not a country where we share more than we have to, so it was not surprising that she just left after the thank you. I had to stay a while longer to write an incident report and got home absolutely exhausted. My husband spends all his time talking to a Karen on FaceTime. My husband has a 19-year-old daughter that's in college. She tested positive on Wednesday afternoon, and she's been by herself in the dorm ever since. She is mildly sick. She's been FaceTiming my husband for hours every day. We also have 2 small kids who are 7 and 2 years old. Our 7-year-old is a daddy's boy. His daughter was not in his life prior to last year when she wanted contact with him. He never mentioned having a daughter to me. On Thursday, my husband was at work, and I guess his daughter kept trying to FaceTime him throughout the day, which he said annoyed him. That night, he was FaceTiming her from around 7 p.m. until midnight. He put his phone facing the TV so they could watch movies and TV together. He ate his dinner on the couch separate from the rest of us. He ignored bedtime routines and told me I can handle it, while our 7-year-old was crying for him. He was sitting on the couch with his phone chatting away to his daughter for hours. On Friday night, our 7-year-old had a hockey game and he wished him good luck and gave him a hug, but didn't bother to get dressed and go to the game. He stayed home on FaceTime with his daughter. I took our kids and my mother out to the game. I came back to find my husband on the couch sleeping and his daughter sleeping on FaceTime. Yesterday, she FaceTimed him in the morning for a little bit and then again around 4 p.m. He ate dinner in the living room while watching football and FaceTiming her. He got off FaceTime around 2 a.m. last night after making something in the kitchen and being loud on his way upstairs. He again didn't help out with bedtime routines and ignored our oldest when he wanted to play Legos or video games with his dad. Today, my husband's phone kept ringing while he was sleeping and it was his daughter. I told my husband when he woke up that he's been ignoring our kids lately and he needs to limit how long he talks on the phone with his daughter. I get that she's sick and lonely, but he's putting our kids on the back burner. My husband said he feels bad for his daughter and he wants to build a relationship with her. He said our kids see him every day and all his daughter has is FaceTime calls. She has no friends and nobody else to talk to and she's going through a lot. I said, with you working during the week and the few hours you have during the evening being spent on FaceTiming your daughter, you really don't spend time with our kids that much, and yesterday you blew our oldest off for hours to talk to her. He got up and said he was done talking about this. His daughter is going through a lot. She is sick and stuck in her dorm with nobody to talk to. He said I'm being ridiculous. Our oldest can entertain himself, and if not, then I should go do something with him. He then said, "Why do I always have to do things with our oldest? Why can't you?" I have, and he prefers his dad over me. He got dressed and left. He's been gone for hours and isn't returning my texts or calls. His daughter is 19. I'm sure she has other friends to speak to, regardless of his claim that she doesn't. She doesn't need to fall asleep on the phone with her dad. Where's her mom in this situation? OP. His daughter claims to hate her mother, and she's not talking to her. I didn't even know about the daughter until last year when he was sneaking around FaceTiming her and wouldn't tell me who he was talking to. When he did tell me, he said he has a daughter from a relationship he was in when he was like 20. He said the mother kept her from him and he didn't have money to fight back in court. He told me he was embarrassed about it and wanted to forget about the incident and move on with his life. The daughter contacted him on Facebook last year and they've been in contact since. She usually only FaceTimes him a few times a week, not this much, and not for hours at a time like recently. Edit 3. I reached out to the daughter on Facebook Messenger. I said, "Hi, we've never met before, but I'm husband's name's wife. I was wondering if we could have a little chat and get to know each other. If not, that's okay too. Thought I would try to break the ice. Take care." She replied, "My dad told me not to talk to you, and I don't know why you were even contacting me after saying all those nasty things about me. You don't even like me. I never did anything to you or spoke to you, but the fact that you don't even know me, yet you are judging me, says a lot about how terrible of a person you are. Do me a favor and do not contact me again. I don't want anything to do with you or your kids. Those poor kids sure as heck picked up on your genes because they look like you. Ew. They're gonna get bullied hardcore, laughing my booty off. I hope my dad can at least teach them to be better people so they don't turn out like you. And the fact I can't come live with you because my dad told me you would make my life living heck, go forget yourself, seriously." I said back, "I'm extremely confused on what you're talking about. Your dad has not mentioned you coming to live with us, and I'm also confused on what you mean by me judging you. As you said, I don't know anything about you, so there's quite a bit of miscommunication here. It's fine if you don't want to be involved in my or my kids' lives. I thought I would just put the option out there. You are an adult and free to choose who you want to associate with. Best of luck with everything, and sorry for bothering you." She said, "BS. That's all I hear is BS. You know darn well what you said because my dad told me exactly what you've been saying. Go check yourself into a dementia unit if you are so confused. Leave me alone and never message me again. I hate you with a burning passion. I never want to meet you or have anything to do with you. Don't you get it? Take your pathetic sorry self and your kids with you and go get hit by a bus." And then she blocked me.
Yowza canowza. Maybe you should think about filing a restraining order.
Yeah, this girl sounds like she needs an exorcism.
Dawn straight, Reddit boy. Dawn straight.
New neighbor claims I threatened them with my dog. For some context, I, female 28, just moved from my city to my first house in a suburban neighborhood about 6 months ago. Just me and my dog, Oaken, a Dutch Shepherd. My dog is trained as a personal protection dog, PPD. I'm a runner and Oaken runs with me. We were running in our neighborhood's park and pond area. I had my AirPods in. It was just getting dark. I noticed in passing a guy on his bike on the same trails, and as we were coming around the pond, he was stopped on our path. He waved us down and said he had dropped his keys, asked if I had seen them on the path, asked if I had a light on me because he thinks he dropped them in the grass, wanted to know if I lived in the neighborhood, which house was mine, if I was nearby because he didn't see any cars in the parking area that he didn't recognize. Basically, anything to do to keep us there and keep talking. Not scary, but annoying with a definite hint of creepy. After he forgot his initial story, he said, "I'm gonna be so upset with myself if I lost another earbud. That's my third pair, and they're nearly $300 a pop." I moved to leave, and he stood in the path and started asking about Oaken. Oaken wasn't exactly doing anything aggressive at this point. No hair raised, no growling or barking. He was doing exactly what he was trained to do, and every time the guy would move to get closer to us, he would just stand between him and me. The guy asked if he was friendly, asked to pet him, and I said I'd rather he not. He kept saying dogs loved him, blah blah. I again said no, and we started to walk around the guy to go. That's when he decided it would be a good idea to try to grab Oaken's leash. I have no idea why. Your guess is as good as mine. Oaken backed us up. Low growl, showed his teeth. Didn't snap, didn't bite. We left. The encounter was strange enough I posted in the neighborhood app. Nothing accusing the guy of attacking us or anything over the top like that, just that my dog and I had gotten stopped by a stranger out running and a reminder not to grab at a person's dog or leash without permission. Apparently, Park Guy's wife read the post and recognized her husband immediately, because since then she's been telling every neighbor who will listen about my aggressive dog attack. I've now gotten a letter from the HOA, and apparently the next homeowners meeting has breed-specific bans on the agenda. While I believe Oaken's response was appropriate and controlled, I'm feeling sad and disappointed that my new community has the wrong impression. I'm not out to terrify people. Am I the jerk for posting what I posted to the neighborhood app and apparently starting a feud with my new neighbor? Was I wrong for calling out Park Guy publicly? ETA. Yes, I have a home security system and cameras. The previous homeowners had a couple of collectible cars in the detached garage/apartment and put in an extensive system. Park Guy's questions about where I lived, etc. didn't immediately set off crazy red flags, because I've been asked very similar questions by multiple women multiple times in the neighborhood too. I'm getting the impression I'm the youngest person in the area by a good 20 or more years because people have asked me who my parents are, who I'm visiting, etc. It seems like the only young people hanging around are ones who drive in from other places to get to the park, and this neighborhood seems weirdly territorial about their park. I will definitely talk to an officer about a report. Not the jerk. Make sure to tell everyone about the aggressive husband. OP. I don't know if I really want to escalate this into a full-fledged war of words, but I'm tempted to jump into the fray and defend myself and my dog. Remember, she chose to out her creepy husband, not you. Without her outing him, he could have been a non-resident, but she decided that defending him when she had plausible deniability was the best choice, not the jerk. Not to mention, his story of losing his keys changed. Something isn't right here. If you end up responding, it would be good to mention that. Earbuds, keys, totally different items. You need to tell them. 1. He blocked your path. 2. He asked you to help find the keys and then later said he had lost a headphone. 3. He prevented you from leaving more than once. 4. He asked for personal information about where you lived. And then ends with he touched your dog after being told not to. And honestly, I can't believe you left all that out of your initial story and just made it sound like a nice guy tried to pet your dog. That dude is using well-known tactics. Do escalate. He was a threat. He threw some major red flags. 1. Second time seeing him, which would be nothing if not for point 2. 2. Changed his story. 3. Asked way too many unnecessary questions which were personal. 4. Blocked your attempts to leave multiple times. 5. And most importantly, ignored your repeated no's. That man was either there to attack you or steal your dog. His wife is just trying to change the narrative to make you look like the attacker rather than the rightful victim. Go to that meeting and defend your dog's actions and tell them everything that happened. If he doesn't want people to think of him as a creep and a danger, he shouldn't act like one. Am I a bad mom for not allowing my daughter to have random guys spend the night at our house? I, female 51, and my daughter, 19, Joan, recently got into a heated argument, and we're turning to random strangers on the internet for guidance in determining who is right. I say we, as this post is her suggestion. My kids were raised in a traditional but non-religious family. Husband and I have been married over 25 years. Although it was, even admittedly rare back in the 90s, we actually waited until we were officially married before we hooked up for the first time. Currently, Joan is attending college and lives with us in our developed basement with a separate entrance. Our 2 other kids have moved out for good. Although Joan is not in a relationship, she is socially active and dates on occasion. The issue, last night, Joan was out with friends, and as mothers are prone to do, I never fall completely asleep until I hear her come home. So last night, she was back around 1 a.m., and as I was still fully awake, I went downstairs to see how her night went. I was, however, wholly unimpressed when I saw her on the couch with a guy she had just met that night. They weren't engaged in anything yet. However, it was evident where events were likely to lead. Although I was polite, I commented to Joan that she really needed to get to sleep as we were planning an early morning walk, and I waited patiently as her new friend got the hint and left. Afterwards, Joan was livid and says that I thoroughly embarrassed her, and that, as she was an adult, she should be able to see whomever she wants, whenever she wants, and wherever she wants. My position is that she is an adult. However, she has no right to bring a stranger into our house without my knowledge, as 1. Lockdown is going on. She says that argument is a red herring because we all have our shots. 2. Our house belongs to her dad and I. I'm not comfortable with having a complete stranger spend the night. Her argument is that she's still a dependent as she's going to college and it's still her house too. 3. Although I don't approve, I agree that as an adult, she can engage in whatever legal activity she chooses. However, not in my house. She knows my views on this kind of stuff, and by engaging in this activity in my house, with me at home, it's a massive sign of disrespect. 4. If she really wants to spend the night like this, that's what hotels are for. Her argument is that, although she's working, she's saving for her future, and that would be a stupid waste of money. So, am I the jerk for making her friend leave, or should I just ignore my long-held belief system and accept her choices as an adult? Edit. My husband's position is that he's taking the Switzerland position, officially neutral. I'm not happy with his lack of support, but I'm not going to engage in a two-front war at the moment. Edit. To answer a few questions and add some comments. 1. Joan does not pay rent. As with all of our kids, she's on the free room and board plan so long as she is attending school. 2. I've never been a helicopter parent, and the notion that not resting comfortably until my daughter gets home on a Saturday night is akin to overparenting is absurd. My husband is a retired detective, and, as he always said to the kids, rarely does anything good happen at 3 in the morning. 3. No, we had never discussed these types of things prior to last night, as the issue never came up. Would my feelings be different if Joan was in a long-term committed relationship? Honestly, I don't know. I'll have to cross that bridge when it happens. Final edit. Thank you, anonymous internet friends. Although my position won with a not the jerk ruling, both my daughter and I gained some insight by reading through many of the comments. Joan acknowledges that bringing someone she just met back to our house was inappropriate for a few reasons. In turn, I've left the door slightly open to the concept of a visit by a long-term partner that we know and are comfortable with. However, it would need to be discussed and agreed to in advance. Not the jerk. I completely agree with you. When I was a college student, my parents wouldn't allow random strangers to come and sleep in their home. Joan needs to remember that while she is an adult, the home belongs to you and your spouse. You're paying the mortgage and rent. An adult is supposed to be responsible for his or her own choices and decisions. If your daughter doesn't like the rules, ask her to pack up her things and move out. I disagree with this, so just wanted to offer another perspective. I agree that the mom can have those rules, but I still think she's the jerk for them due to the potential unintended consequences. Mostly that the mom, same mom who can't go to sleep until she knows her daughter is safe at home, would rather her go to a hotel with a random stranger than have her come home, just because she disagrees with the activity. Prioritizing her beliefs over the daughter's safety makes her the jerk for me, especially since it sounds like her daughter has her own separate area of the home, so it's not like she's in the room next to the parents. You're the jerk. I accept your opinion, but I disagree with you as well. My parents did that when I was in college, and they wanted to know that we were safe back home when coming back late. This lady is a good parent, and she is not prioritizing her beliefs over her daughter. However, it's her home, period. Her house, her rules. I posted another comment with more details about this, but I also had parents like this, and it led to very unsafe scenarios for me. Your house, your rules doesn't mean parents don't have crappy rules. I went to college with a girl who had mean parents that didn't allow people over because of their color. Their house, their rules, but that doesn't mean it's not a crappy rule and that they wouldn't be the jerk. The question here is whether or not she's allowed to have rules at the house. It's whatever, she's the jerk. Lying to my parents about where I was is exactly how I was attacked by someone who I knew for a decade plus. Had I been able to come home drunk that night, it wouldn't have happened. OP is putting her daughter in precarious situations because of her personal beliefs. She puts higher value on her own image rather than her daughter's safety. I won't call her the jerk though, because it is bringing strangers into her home. I just don't want OP to pretend like she's a great mom and give a shocked Pikachu face when her daughter realizes how truly toxic her values system is. If she can't sleep till her daughter comes home, she's going to be wanting to know when she's out at hotels with guys, or at the very least not coming home. At that point, it opens up for mom to give opinions on where and what her daughter is doing, which I think is an overstep at this age. I also don't see OP being comfortable with her daughter doing that regularly, and it could lead to problems of claiming she's spending too many late nights not coming home. The alternative is she brings her dates home. into this separate suite, and mom respects her autonomy as long as it is legal. What is your priority? No hooking up in the house, or knowing your daughter is coming home at night? I don't think either answer is wrong, just that only one can be the deciding factor in your relationship. I would also argue that if the daughter is paying rent, she should be able to have opposite or same people encounters in her space. If she is not, it could be a compromise. A nominal rent fee equals adult space. Mom doesn't check in when her daughter comes home. If she needs a check-in, she can send her daughter a text. Or daughter goes to a hotel for hookups like most of us. To the daughter, it is your mother's home and ultimately you need to respect her decision. If you aren't paying rent, then no hooking up in the house. Adult privileges come with adult prices. Do you want her to engage in these types of activities with someone in a place where she's safe? Or in a place where she isn't safe? You may be thinking, well, at least I can control what happens under my roof. Or, just don't do it in my house. But if it's not happening in your house, then it's likely to happen somewhere else. And if things turn bad when she's somewhere else, she's on her own. Additionally, now that she's an adult and can come and go independently, you need to start loosening how intrusive you're being. I get that it's hard to sleep if you don't know that she's in yet, but that is your issue to deal with, not hers. Nor should you be nosing in with, we have plans tomorrow morning, so you need to go to sleep. Her need for sleep is on her to manage. How well are you going to sleep if she moves out soon? Long before you might want her to, because she can't stand the lack of privacy and how you're still treating her like a kid. Do you want a good relationship with your rules or with your daughter? So yes, you're the jerk. It's reasonable, however, for you to not want her to bring complete strangers into your house for security and privacy reasons, but there are more careful places to draw that line than what you're trying to do. You're arguing, but it's a stranger, while what you want to have for rules stretches a lot further. Absolutely not. If you want your own life without your parents meddling, then get your own place. Her mom ain't gonna stay up late waiting for her kid if her kid doesn't live with her. But the fact that Joan does live with her, then she has to follow her rules. I go to college, have my own place, work part-time, and can hook up with whoever, wherever, and whenever. Joan is a leech if she can't simply follow her parents' rules. Joan is 19. She's not a leech, and you don't know what the economy for buying in their town is. ETA, I've never had this many likes before. Oh my. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter? Please let us know.
Want adult privileges? How about moving out and being an adult? Hopefully OP won't get stuck raising a grandbaby like the grandpa did in yesterday's story.
I won over $5,000 in court after a car accident that I caused. Okay, so just a little bit of info before I get into the story. I, 22 male, work construction and run a few crews, and I'm a foreman because I've been working in this field since I started working summers when I was 14. That's legal in my state. With this being said, I have a lot of experience and get paid very well. For my job, I need a truck that can pull a lot of trailers and also get into a lot of sketchy job sites, especially in the winter. So I drive a new lifted pickup, F350. Anyways, let's get into it. So about 4 months ago now, I got off work one day and I just really didn't feel like making dinner, so I decided to go get myself the trusty Big Mac at McDonald's. Well, after I got my order, I was going to pull out into the parking lot to drive home, and I was looking hard over to my left to see how busy the road was before I got over there. Well, I wasn't paying great attention to what was happening in front of me, and as I was creeping forward, someone who was in front of me was stopped and not paying attention either. I ended up barely hitting his mirror and scraping his door with my front end. I immediately reversed and hopped out. I made sure the guy was okay and apologized, knowing it was my fault, and asked him if he would like to call the cops. Let's call him Brent. Brent says, "Nah, bro, we're all good. If you just get me your insurance info, I think we can get this taken care of." I was fine with that, as there was no damage done to my truck, and it's not required to call the cops for an accident if it occurs in a private parking lot. This is relevant later. We exchange info, and he seems pretty cool, so I tell him to go get the damage bid, and I'll just pay in cash so my insurance rates don't go up as long as he's okay with it. He says that's fine, and we both just leave, and I feel like a moron. But all in all, Brent seems like a cool dude, and I just hope we can get it sorted out smoothly. About a month passes by, and I haven't heard anything from Brent or the shop I told him to go to. Honestly, I wasn't too stressed about this, because if he decided to not get it done, that's on him. Well, he calls me up one day at about noon, saying he can't remember my name, and he wanted to tell the guys at the shop who sent him there because it seemed like we knew each other. I told him my name, and the guys at the shop gave him a deal. Pretty sure they say this to everyone. He sends me the bid for damages, and it comes out to $2,403. This was more than I imagined, but I said to get it done, and I'd take care of the bill afterward, and that was that. He hung up, said it was cool, and I went on with my day as usual. Another month goes by, and I don't hear anything until Brent calls me up while I'm at work again and says, "Hey brother, I talked to the shop, and they said they can't get me in for another 2 weeks or so, and they may end up charging me more if they find more damage." I said, "Okay, sounds good. Just let me know, man. I hope it goes smooth for you, and I'm sorry for the inconvenience." He seems to take it good, and I'm really trying to just be a good person. He responds with, "Well, after talking to my wife, I'm okay if you just wanted to write a check for $2,500 and we can call it even." This seemed odd to me, because why the heck wouldn't someone want their vehicle repairs all paid for? I say, "Okay man, let's set a time and place to meet and I'll get you paid." He liked the idea and ended the call by telling me he would let me know. Yet another month passes by and I hear nothing again. At this point, I'm getting fed up and just want this situation to stop being over my head. He hits me up at 11 p.m. one night and asks if we can meet in town. I found this kind of disrespectful because I was nearly asleep and had to be at work at 5 a.m. the next day. Either way, I said that was fine and took my $2,500 cash and wrote up a quick contract saying this payment would be accepted as payment in full for the damages, and by accepting it, it would release me from any and all liability. This was a pretty fair contract, I believe, as it was the deal we had already made over the phone, just in writing. I get to the place we suggested as a meetup spot. I give him the cash, and he signs the contract without hardly even reading it and didn't want the copy. This was a red flag to me, but I just assumed he really didn't care about it all that much. So I just sent him the photo of the contract and go back home for some beauty sleep. As you can guess by now, another month goes by with me just living life carefree and not a worry in the world about this stupid car accident. Well, I go to check my mail, and I have a notice from this guy's lawyer that he's suing me for not paying after wrecking his car. This upset me, but I also knew I had plenty of text messages and a contract on my side. I immediately call Brent, and he blocks my number. Luckily enough, my girlfriend works for a lawyer, so I get him updated, and he says he'd love to help. He lets me know I saved myself by writing that contract, as any contract worth over $500 is to be held up in any level court in my state. I immediately get to work on my revenge. I remember on the side of this guy's car, he had a business logo, and I took pictures of the damage, so I hop online and get to the Better Business Bureau to look up who owns this company, thinking that surely he couldn't own the business because he is such an idiot. I was wrong. This guy owns the company, and I can see that he has about 12 one-star reviews, all in dispute because of his shady business practices, telling people it will cost one thing and then charging them 4 times what he said it would. Sound familiar? Remember when he said the shop may charge more than the original $2,403? That's right, he was suing me for $10,000, 4 times what the shop told him it would cost. Unbelievable. He was trying his same sneaky crap on me. My lawyer takes none of this, and we show up to court ready for war. This guy is sleazy. As we get there and all set up, he says, "You ready to give me more of Daddy's money?" with a smirk. I guess just because I'm young and drive a nice truck and could afford $2,500. His lawyer gets up and starts trying to say BS from me, hitting and running, and Brent barely got a picture of my license plate, so I tried bullying him into taking a deal for only $2,500 when the damage was clearly more than that. There were obvious holes in his story, and he really didn't have much to say. Just imagine the smile on my face as my lawyer lays out the printouts of our text messages and the physical copy of the contract, which was signed by Brent. His lawyer was ghostly white and looked sick. After laying out all of the evidence, my lawyer pulled out a little hidden gem, the printouts of all the complaints we found on the Better Business Bureau and how he was doing the same thing to me. This was the final nail in the coffin, as the judge said he had seen enough. He asked Brent for any final statements, and Brent said, "I don't even have the $2,500 anymore. Can I get that then, and we will be okay?" Literally admitting to the judge that he had received my money, and his story was just a load of crap. I thought his lawyer was gonna lose it. It was beautiful. The judge ended up ruling in my favor and demanded him to pay my legal fees as well as damages and lost wages because I had to miss work to be in court. The absolute sweetest part was that this particular day my crew was on a very high-wage job, and I was technically the one getting paid before I paid them out as subcontractors. This means I was to be paid $475 an hour, and this whole ordeal took about 5 hours. He ended up having to pay me almost $5,000. I don't think I've ever been so happy in my life. Sorry it was so long, I just really felt the need to share. Thank you to anyone who made it this far. The Karen of my building told me her keycard isn't working, demanded I fix her keycard, so I did. This just happened maybe 5 minutes ago, and I think it's hilarious. I'm the facility manager to my building. Everything that happens and goes wrong is my responsibility, so I make sure everything runs smoothly. My boss had made it clear, it's my building and I was hired to not only keep the people in line, but run everything. I'm not a jerk, but I hold people accountable, forcibly but politely. There was no facility manager for a long time before I came along, and both clients and employees ran amok, with no order. In the 4 months I've been here, my boss has praised my performance and has gone to bat for me countless times. She's the best boss I've ever had. I've got a firm but fair approach, and my reputation reflects that. I've got a Karen in the building, and trust me, the name stereotype applies. Who's just a counselor for family services has nothing to do with our group. She likes to complain about everything and gives my boss a headache almost daily. She shares an office with another woman who's unfortunately picking up on her Karen tendencies, Karen in training. I've been doing a keycard audit all week, and I know to leave Karen's keycard alone because she's the only Karen in the building, so her name stands out. I'm missing 75 keycards. Lots of former employees having all door access dating all the way back to 2015. Can't have that, so I deleted a lot of them, especially if it had a wacky name or just a room number. However, I did delete Karen in Training's card information because it wasn't under her name. She just came to tell me her keycard wasn't working, and Karen happened to be passing by and overheard it. I went and fixed Karen in Training's keycard, and we went to go check to see if it worked or not. We found Karen outside the office waiting, complaining to my boss that her keycard didn't work either. Karen wandered away, and my boss rolled her eyes, and I smiled, and I told her I would take care of it. After checking to make sure Karen in Training's keycard worked, I went downstairs to check the system, looked up Karen, and wouldn't you know it, her keycard was completely fine. In fact, it showed she had a master keycard, so I changed all of her permissions and limited her back to just her room only. I went upstairs and got my boss's attention because her office is next door to the ladies, and I mouthed, "Listen," and pointed. I opened their door and was all, "Hey Karen, I went and checked your keycard in the system. Everything is good to go. In fact, it said you had a master key to the building, and per the company's orders, since you're not a contractor or a company employee, I can't give you that access, so I had to revoke your status to just this room only. Can't have you bugging people on official business. Wink. Thanks for bringing your keycard to my attention." She started to object that she needed the master keycard because XYZ, and I was all, "Yeah, sorry, maybe before, but I'm the facility manager, and you don't need access to everything except this office, and if you do, it's outside your pay grade, so you'll have to come get me. Okay? Cool, thanks. Bye." And then just closed the door on her mid-sentence. My boss was quietly laughing herself off in the office and gave me an air high five. My girlfriend demands to have the first bite every time I get fast food. I've been living with my girlfriend for the past 6 months. We're both in our early 20s and have an overall great relationship. From well before our relationship began, I've been a big fast food eater. There's an intersection in my city that hosts 7 different fast food restaurants, and I'll frequent basically all of them. Since I do shift work, I'm generally off the clock at around 11 a.m., and then being too tired to cook, I'll hit up a burger joint for a cheeseburger and some fries. My girlfriend always wants to have exactly 1 bite, exclusively the first bite, of every item I order. When I noticed this, I would start by contacting her on my way to the restaurant, asking if she wanted something. Her answer was consistently no, but when I get home and dig in, the crinkling of a fast food bag is like a Pavlov's bell to her. She'll immediately beeline straight for wherever I'm eating and ask if she can have a bite. I've asked if I could just leave her a little at the end. No, she wants the first bite. I've pleaded with her to just let me buy her food. No, she doesn't want to eat that much. I've tried ordering a bit more and letting her polish off the whole burger. No, she'll turn every item into a sampler platter and then throw away the food I bought for her after the first bite if I don't eat it. I don't like it. I don't like this bizarre culinary version of Jus Primae Noctis.
Can somebody tell Reddit boy how to pronounce this?
For the past few weeks, I've been eating in my car and discreetly disposing of the wrappers. I was just telling her I wasn't hungry after work, but the other day she found a garbage bag full of fast food wrappers in our bin on garbage day, and she's furious at me for lying to her. Am I the jerk for not sharing with her? Not the jerk. Stop hiding. Tell her if she wants food, you'll buy it for her, but her having to have the first bite of anything you eat is over now. If she wants to be mad over it, then let her be mad. Edit. A few things have come up, and the solution to it would be, if she orders food and only takes a single bite and tosses it, then she only gets food if she pays for it herself from now on. Agree. Better to be honest, but draw a hard line no to any sharing. If she wants something, she has to request her own item. I don't let anyone make me feel bad for being unwilling to share my food. Or at least start paying for any food she wastes when you do get her some. OP, you're not the jerk at all. Wasting is another issue, but I think OP needs to put his foot down first. OP needs to establish his boundaries. This is not okay. If he can't say no when she asks, he's essentially enabling her. It's not like he has to watch helplessly as she invades the food. It's his own darn food. He has a choice. Yes, he does offer her compromises, but why should she take them if at the end of the day, she can still get what she wants? None of this can work if he doesn't tell her no. Also, there seems to be deeper issues here than just food. Does she eat anything besides the one bite per item of what OP buys? Or does she restrict her diet to just that? The fact that she refused to eat her own portion or meal, even when it's bought for her and brought to her, is very alarming. When she's throwing out perfectly good food for just one bite, it's way worse than just a cute quirk. Not the jerk, OP, but next time when you get her fast food, take the first bite before you bring it near her. See how she reacts. Work your way from there. Best of luck. OP. Putting my foot down is not my strong point, as she tends to start debating and getting emotional. But you're right. The only way to stop this weird behavior is to tell her no. If she wants a bite of my cheeseburger, she can pry it from my fingers. What possible argument could she have for needing to have the first bite of your food? You're not the jerk here. Glad you're going to put your foot down. She'll argue that he doesn't love her enough to do this. Apparently, there's something called first bite, best bite, last bite, where you give the person you love the first bite, the best bite, and or the last bite. My partner often gives me any of these, but I never demand it. He just volunteers, and I'll volunteer the same to him. Like if he's cooking eggs, he eats the ugly ones and gives me the pretty ones. If we're sharing fries, the last fry ends up on the plate for ages because we're both leaving it for the other person. When we eat at restaurants and order different foods, we offer a taste of ours before digging in. But expecting and demanding a first bite of your partner's hamburger when you're not eating and when you could have had your own, that smacks of territory marking. I am not here for it.
Bruh, whoever knew people were so weird about food?
You're telling me. If you wanted the first bite of my burger, I'd tell you to go forget yourself.
That's why I spit in your food, Reddit boy.
Am I the jerk for just liking my coffee the way I like it? I live near a coffee shop that operates from a cart. They are a tiny shop with usually one person on, but sometimes two. Their cart is on the property of a restaurant and is owned by the restaurant, but slightly different. And I'm not a fan of the restaurant, but the cart coffee is honestly some of the best I've ever tasted. They run from 8 to 3 or so, but it usually suits me to come in around 2:50 to 3, but occasionally much earlier. Today I came just at 3 and saw the barista was still serving, so I hopped in the queue, with a group of women following behind me. As she started steaming the person in front of me's drink, she announced to the queue that they could order the coffee from the restaurant because the cafe was no longer serving past 3. Bear in mind it's 3:01-ish, and I had probably been in the queue right at 3, if not a few seconds before. Let me preface by saying the restaurant coffee is just not good. They say it's the same, but it's made by the waitstaff, not baristas, and it really isn't what I'm there for. I also am very health conscious and was mindful of going into a restaurant during lockdown just to order a coffee. The women behind me must not have minded because they went into the restaurant, but I figured I'd ask for my usual. The barista turned around to finish serving the person ahead of me and didn't even look at me. Bear in mind, I know her since I come here a lot. She knows my usual, always smiles and chats, and I've even asked her for some treats as she was locking up once, and she said she had wrapped them up for the night a while ago, but was extremely apologetic and remembers to offer me treats every time. When the person left, she finally looked at me. I ordered my usual and she repeated, "I'll just ask if you could order inside since I've got to close up out here." I asked if she'd make an exception since I'm lockdown conscious, and she said just this once, but seemed off. I thanked her again for serving me, and she said no worries, but as she was closing up, I was sitting in their outdoor area on my laptop, and she would not look or smile at me as she usually does, and was barely looking my direction, even though it was like 3:05 by the time she made my order, 2 minutes later than if I hadn't ordered. I know what people will say about going to a place at closing time, but I was in the queue just in time. I think she would have happily made the exception for me if it weren't for the group behind me, and only asked us all to go because there were 3 or 4 of them. And I'm just wondering if I'm missing something because she acted happy to serve me 1 minute, but was then colder than usual. You're the jerk. You keep going at closing time and have repeatedly asked for special treatment. Asked them to stay open past closing for you, requesting free treats. You're incredibly entitled. Of course they'll be friendly if you're a regular and it happened once. You'd still be a jerk for just once, but they'd act nice out of professional courtesy. But repeated behavior like this definitely puts a strain on their tolerance. Stop going right at closing time, even if it suits you best. Either go earlier or not at all. If you can go earlier, but you go intentionally at closing, you're an even bigger jerk. Stop asking for them to stay overtime just for you. You aren't special. Stop asking for free treats. Again, you aren't special. Stop being an entitled jerk. Edit to add, the treats bit is even worse. OP went back to the barista and asked for treats at 3:45 after the barista had already closed out the till. Also, OP has either not been tipping or not tipping extra even after making them work over. OP is a giant jerk. Edit. About the free treats comment. OP didn't specifically ask for free treats, but in the comments, OP states that they didn't ask for the treats until they saw the barista leaving at 3:45, and after the till had been closed. They didn't ask for treats when they ordered their coffee, which was already late. If you watch a barista close up the till, see them leaving, and then ask for treats as a second, even later order after the cart is long closed, the implication there is definitely that you're asking for them for free. If OP really had intended to pay for the treats, they seem to go to the cart every day, they easily could have paid the next day. Oh my goodness. I missed the part about the free treats. That is so annoying. As a former barista, I know this lady. The customer who thinks you're friends because you're friendly and expects special treatment. Like the lady who walked behind the counter and started making her own drink once, saying, "Don't worry, I live here." Remembers to offer me treats? The entitlement in that statement. Is OP a dog? Dogs are generally more appreciative, but maybe. You weren't just in time, per your story. You jumped in the queue at exactly 3 p.m., so probably a minute or two after, knowing they close at 3 p.m. The barista asked you to go inside because she needed to close and you refused. She caved so as to not upset you, likely knowing you'd react poorly as a regular. And based on the previous encounter you mentioned with the treats, she's probably intimidated by you. She wouldn't smile at you as she was closing because you're the jerk. You held her up, and depending on how strict her schedule is, you likely set her back a few minutes and could have caused issues for her. Some companies are very strict about overtime. Maybe she had to pick up her kid. Maybe she's on the way to another job, etc. Edit. This story does not match the title at all. Add that to the list of reasons you're the jerk. Right? I saw the title and was expecting some drama about wanting almond milk instead of regular or something. Not, I showed up when they were already closing and demanded to be served because I'm special. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the barista? Please let us know.
Bruh, what kind of treats you talking about?
Don't worry, Karen. We'll pick you up some more when we go to Walmart today. Coworker thinks my personal out-of-work activities are not as important as her kids. I'm a married 36-year-old woman with no plans to have kids. I recently had an issue with a coworker where our boss emailed her and I to ask if one of us could cover an evening call. It's a 9-to-5 job, but we occasionally have evening calls due to collaborators in a different time zone. The coworker asked me to do it because her son had a soccer game, but I said that I can't do it because I had a volleyball game. She said that I should do it because the soccer game is for her kid and my volleyball game is just for fun. I said that respectfully, my outside of work commitments are not less important than hers because I don't have kids, and that she should take the call because I had taken the last 2. She scoffed at me, and I know that other people around the office have been gossiping about me and saying that it was super messed up that I made her miss her kid's soccer game. I think that it's incredibly important to support working mothers. I am always more than happy to accommodate the schedules of the mothers I work with when it doesn't cause a significant inconvenience to me. For example, some coworkers leave early to pick up their kids. Our company is great about that, and I'm happy to work project schedules around that. I also would have taken that call if I hadn't had a conflict, as long as it wasn't a pattern of me taking significantly more evening calls. I talked to a friend about this, who's a mother, and she said that I should have just done it, because people who don't have kids really should have more empathy for working parents, and we don't understand how hard it is. I said respectfully that I do understand that working mothers have much more stressful lives than I do, which is why I decided not to be a mother. I also said that I can have respect and empathy for working mothers and also value my time and choices equally. She similarly scoffed and said that I don't understand. Am I the jerk here? Follow up. Thanks everyone for the support. I'd like to acknowledge that a lot of the support is coming from working mothers, which I appreciate. Almost all of this has been respectful, but for anyone bashing mothers generally or using mean terms, I don't need your support. Not the jerk. I love it when people say, "But you don't have a family," as though people were hatched from pods. Having kids isn't a free pass to get out of things you'd prefer not to do. It ticked me off when I was single and newly married. Like, if I don't have my contractual time off, when am I supposed to start one? I took my first vacation last week in 2 years, and on my return this morning, one of my non-friend coworkers messaged me and was like, "What could you possibly do for a week and a half with no kids at home?" Like, dude, I have dogs to go out with, books to read, Reddit to argue on, naps to take, Sims to control, and a lockdown to hide from. OP, I'm a mom of a tween. Your coworker and your friend are being jerks. It's unfathomable to me to use my choice to have a kid as an excuse to expect my colleagues to cover for me. Do I want to be there? Yep. Do I have to miss sometimes? Also yep. I wonder if her husband is pressuring people to cover his work so he can attend, or if she expects him to. Not the jerk, but it wasn't smart to say what your conflict was. You didn't have to justify it. All you had to say was, "Sorry, I really can't. I have a prior commitment." No is a complete sentence, especially if she had done the last 2 calls. Not the jerk. This isn't like her kid was hurt or in a hospital, so she can't come in. It's a hobby versus a hobby, and clearly her turn to pick up the shift. Enjoy your volleyball game. Am I the jerk for ordering fried pork intestine at a Chinese restaurant my girlfriend took me to? Me, 24 male, and my girlfriend, 23 female, of 2 years, went out to an Asian restaurant yesterday. I'm a white guy and she's Asian, and she had been saying all before we went how I shouldn't be afraid to try the real Chinese food that they have there, and I kept saying I was looking forward to it because I love trying new things. But every time I said that, she just raised an eyebrow and went, "We'll see." Well, we got there and the menu was in Mandarin with English subtitles, and they had all kinds of things on it I'd never even imagined. It looked awesome. I ordered jellyfish tentacles over vinegar as an appetizer, and she just went, "Okay, I get it, haha," ordering the weirdest thing on the menu just to prove me wrong. And she wouldn't believe me when I really enjoyed the dish. She tried some and just went, "Whoa, oh my gosh, there's no way you like that." And I just went, "Well, would you like to come take a seat inside my brain so you can tell for sure?" And she just rolled her eyes. I ordered the fried pork intestine. I've had tripe and I liked that, so I figured this would be cool, and the waiter was trying to discourage me from ordering it because he didn't think I would like it. As soon as he said that, my girlfriend just pounced and was like, "Yeah, no, he wouldn't like that. Don't order that. Order something you would like. Order fried rice or something." And I was like, "No, I want to try fried pork intestine, and I'm ordering fried pork intestine. I'm not here to try fried rice. You can get that anywhere. I'm here for something I can't get anywhere else." And the waiter just cautiously took down the order, and girlfriend was like, "Well, you didn't have to be like that." I didn't even raise my voice. So I finally get the pork intestine. One of the chefs pokes his head out of the kitchen to watch me eat it, and it was incredible. I asked my girlfriend if she wanted any. She made a weird face and said, "No, obviously you went and ordered the grossest thing possible just to make a point," and accused me of being passive-aggressive. I ate it all and wished there was more, and all the way home she was saying how I am passive-aggressive and she can't believe I did what I did. And when we got home, I just said, "Look, I can't believe you're upset that I ordered food from a place you took me to, and you're even more upset that I liked it." She said, "If you're gonna be like this about my culture, then you are never meeting my parents." I mean, I don't know. Maybe I was being passive-aggressive and just didn't realize it. People can be passive aggressive unconsciously, right? I thought I was ordering what interested me and eating food I enjoyed, and I'm probably gonna go back to that place without her because the food was straight up fire. But maybe I should have ordered something else so that it didn't look like I was bragging about how I can handle Asian food. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like she should be with a guy who shares her culture so that she can be with someone she believes. Not the jerk. Sounds like she's the one being passive aggressive, to be honest. She tells you that you shouldn't be afraid of ordering real Chinese food and then gets upset with you? Very weird reaction. I totally agree. Why did she take you there if she wanted you to either order something more American or not like what you got? Feels like this was kind of a weird setup. It does feel like a weird setup. I agree. Not the jerk, OP. It's very odd that she was annoyed that you were willing to try new things. I mean, isn't that the point of having authentic restaurants? Exactly. He was never going to win. If he ordered fried rice, she would have given him crap for not trying something more adventurous. She set him up to fail. Not the jerk. Your girlfriend is overreacting. Yeah, pork intestines sound gross, but hey, kudos to you for enjoying the heck out of it. I'm sure as long as the chef cooked it right. Maybe I'm just the out-of-touch southerner, but pork intestines are just chitterlings. Is it that weird of a dish outside of the South? Mind you, I've never had them, religious reasons, but I've grown up in a community that would eat them. Not the jerk. But you've been dating 2 years, and I feel like I'm missing some context about why she was surprised at this stage of your relationship that you enjoy trying new things. OP, that surprised me too. I mean, I like sushi and mainstream Asian foods, so there was a range of Asian foods she knew I liked. But I guess she just didn't think it trespassed beyond the mainstream. She knows I like trying new things. It's been a thing before. I guess she just didn't know how far that went. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
This is what's called a red flag. Leave her now, boyo, or you're gonna be dealing with this weird crap for the rest of your life.
Am I the jerk for having my husband's friend kicked out for bringing his 4 kids to my child-free wedding? My husband, who's 30, and I, who am also 30, got married 2 weeks ago. We decided on a child-free wedding due to venue choice, food choice, alcohol, location, etc. We included this rule in every invitation, including the one my husband's bestie, Leo, who's 35, who is a widower with 4 kids. Leo complained to my husband about the rule, but that was that. At the wedding, my husband said he was worried his friend Leo may not come since I refused to let him bring his kids. But about almost an hour into the wedding, we start hearing noise from a distance. We look closely and see Leo standing there with his 4 kids dressed nicely. He was arguing with the staff about the kids not being allowed. I felt horrible because the staff was drilling that this was a child-free wedding and that the kids needed to leave. But Leo kept arguing and went as far as to yell out my husband's name, telling him to come tell the staff off since it's his wedding. I was so upset and embarrassed, but I kept my composure and went over to talk to Leo. I told him to either get the kids somewhere else and come back or just leave. He acted offended, saying this is his best friend's wedding and he was invited to it. I said I was sorry, but the rule is followed by everybody, and everybody should respect that. He argued about how he wasn't just a random guest, but was family, but I said it still applies. I insisted he make his choice, but he doubled down, talking about how he couldn't find a babysitter and how he shouldn't have to miss his best friend's wedding. I had the staff escort him and his kids out after he kept pushing, which led to some of my husband's friends to complain, saying Leo has special circumstances because he's a widower, and it's essentially my fault for not providing babysitting options for guests. Wedding went on after that, but my husband was angry. He said that this is his best friend and that I just caused him to miss the wedding. He said Leo stopped answering his calls until today and has not responded to his messages because of what I did. Now my husband believes that I have just ruined his relationship with his friend when I could have just made an exception for him and the kids since they were there already. Am I the jerk? Edit. Just so you know, my husband was on board with this rule, but wanted me to make an exception for his friend and his friend only. My family and friends would have felt deeply hurt if I said yes. Not the jerk in the least. The rule was well telegraphed in advance. Leo just showing up was an absolutely jerk move. I'm convinced that, given his reaction, perhaps your husband encouraged Leo to just show up without your knowledge. If that is true, he is also the jerk. The husband doesn't seem to have been on board with the whole no kids thing, and based on